Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We got Jake with PackMan Sports with a 2022 NFL mock draft video. I realized I made a mock draft in my community tab through pictures because that's all that time that I had to do. But for today, I'm able to get you guys a video and I will explain in detail why I have decided to go with this player for this team. And that is the whole basis, is I'm going to be able to provide and put myself into the GM chair and think about what each GM and front office is going to do for the respective teams. I will do an entire breakdown of the first round, then I'll go over briefly of the day 2 picks in graphics. So let's get into this. Here is my 2022 NFL mock draft, with the Jacksonville Jaguars being again on the clock with the number 1 overall pick. I believe that this pick is going to be Aidan Hutchinson, the defensive end out of Michigan. The reason why I'm going with this pick is simply because I just think that they're going to go best player available, even though they have greater needs in other areas. But this guy is a really good football player. Aidan has been just been a running train for the Michigan Wolverines, and he's drawn a lot of comparisons to Nick Bosa, as well as several other pass rushers. He's probably not quite on the caliber of the Bosas, but he is pretty darn close, and he's arguably one of the best pass rushers in this game. Jacksonville can use a three-headed monster at edge rusher. You already have Josh Allen there, Caleb Von Chason, and then you add Aidan Hutchinson to be able to add into the rotation. With the number 2 overall pick, this is the Detroit Lions on the clock. I've had a really big time tough decision with this one. I know that they really need a pass rusher that bad. They just cut Trey Flowers a few months ago, so they could go in that direction. But I'm hearing reports that they're really not all that high on Hutchinson, their home state guy, and they're not really too high on Thibodeaux either. I don't really get why they are not really all that interested in Thibodeaux, because I think he's a really potentially good stud pass rusher. He has a tremendous skill set. He's a freaky athlete. He's so quick off the ball, and he fits the 3-4 defense very well. I think he's perfect. He is a perfect fit for the 3-4. Maybe not so much for the Detroit Lions and what Dane Campbell looks for in a player. Maybe he's looking for a more of a tough grinder type of player. There's reports of Kayvon Thibodeaux being kind of a little bit of a slacker. He took off some of the time. He cut his time short at the combine, so that's probably kind of a little bit of a bad look. There's some questions about character as well, unfortunately, for Kayvon, but I don't see what's the big deal. I think Kayvon is going to be an absolutely fantastic player, and I think that's probably why they're going to pass on him. So for the number 2 overall pick, I think I'm going to go for the hype player, and they're going to go for a player on the defense, and that is Georgia's defensive end, Travon Walker. I think the reason why they're going to go for Travon here is because they have a need at 3-4 defensive end. Also, they could really use some interior pass rush as well as outside pass rush. They can go look for maybe a player, an outside pass rusher at 32 or up at the top of the second round to fill in that void for Trey Flowers, who was just cut. So I'm going to go with Walker here. He has blown up the combine. He tested very well. He looks very athletic. I personally think this is a little bit too high for Walker, but I think the hype is there, and I think teams see that he is going to be a top 5 player. And if the Lions really like Travon and what he brings to the table for that mentality for the Detroit Lions and what Dane Campbell likes, I think that's probably why they're going to go for Walker here. And I got to say, it wouldn't be that bad of a pick. And the Lions short the defense and grab an interior player here. Now we come up to number 3, where the Houston Texans are on the clock. They have a first-round pick. They haven't had one last year. They have one this year, and they have 2 first-round picks. And with their first-round pick, this pick is a toss-up to me between Evan Neal and Ahmad Gardner. There's a lot of talk about Ahmad Gardner potentially be here in this spot. And if they go for this pick for Ahmad Gardner, it wouldn't be a bad one. They need some help at corner. They need some help just about everywhere that you can think of. I think that if I'm looking at Houston, they released Marcus Cannon, their right tackle, and there just happens to be some good offensive tackles right up here that are potentially that could be potentially good picks. You got Ike Ekwonu and Evan Neal. And I think for the Texans, I think that they're going to go for Evan Neal, the Alabama offensive tackle. I think he really fits what the Texans can do. And you got the Houston Texans GM Nick Caserio. He comes from the Bill Belichick line, and the Bill Belichick guys, they like to go for Alabama Crimson Tide guys. So I think I can see why they would go for Evan Neal. It's a toss-up between Ekwonu and Neal for me for the Texans, but I think that just with that Bill Belichick type of players that they look for, I think that's going to be Evan Neal. And at number 4, we have the New York Jets, also with 2 first-round picks. They're picking at 4 and 10. The number 4 overall pick, to me, I think that this pick is going to be Sauce Gardner, the cornerback out of Cincinnati. The Jets certainly need a whole lot of help at corner. They need some help at safety after losing Marcus May, but they did bring in some guys, and they also signed back LaMarcus Joyner, so I think safety is probably not going to be as much. They do have Ashton Davis there. Cornerback, they did sign a cornerback in free agency. They got a guy from the 49ers. So I think that cornerback is being shored up, but I think maybe if you add another young player, such as Ahmad Sauce Gardner, who is a nice, long, tall press corner, I think that having a number 1 shutdown corner is very vitally important. And I know the Jets have a lot of picks in this draft, so they can... The picks are aplenty, and the options are aplenty. I thought about Kayvon Thibodeau here at number 4, but I just think that Thibodeau is a better fit for the 3-4 as opposed to the Jets, what they do with their 4-3. So I think that's why I'm going to go with cornerback Ahmad Sauce Gardner over Thibodeau. If he was a 4-3 defensive end match, I would go for Thibodeau here. So I think that Sauce Gardner edges out Thibodeau just because of scheme fit. And now at number 5, we come up to the New York Giants. Everybody is going to be assuming that this is an offensive tackle, and I think everybody is going to be assuming correct. I think the Giants have to target an offensive tackle. They lost Nate Solder, their last year's starting right tackle. He is probably most likely not going to be returning, and you can get a really good right tackle prospect in Ike Ekwonu, the North Carolina State offensive tackle. So I think this is going to be the pick. If Evan Neal is here, they're probably going to go with him. It's a toss-up between the two. They are very co-equal number 1 offensive tackles. It's pretty tough to say which one they're going to go with. I think whichever offensive tackle drops to them, I think that is going to be their pick. We know that the Giants have lots of other needs elsewhere. They need edge rushers. They could go potentially for a cornerback because there's a lot of talk about James Bradbury being traded. And then you also have the need at safety. They lost a couple of guys in free agency. So the New York Giants have some options. Kyle Hamilton is a potential pick here at number 5. He's probably one of the better prospects in this draft and arguably one of the best defensive players, right behind Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. So I think the New York Giants are probably going to shore up this offensive line and protect Daniel Jones to give him a better chance of succeeding as their quarterback. And this pick here for the Carolina Panthers, this one is going to be interesting. They don't have any day 2 picks. There's a lot of talks about the Panthers possibly trading out of the number 6 overall pick. I don't know. There is a lot of talk about it possibly happening. Will it happen? I think it's a very good large possibility. I know that Carolina could move down and possibly look at Malik Willis for quarterback. If there are the offensive tackles, if they don't see what they like here at number 6 with Ekwonu and Neal gone, they could potentially move down for a left tackle. I think that's probably where they most likely will go. Quarterback is in the discussion. You have Sam Darnold for the Panthers, kind of underwhelming right now. And I know the quarterback class is not very good, so they could trade down for a quarterback. This one, to me, guys, I think they stay put here, and the number 6, they are going to go for him. They're going to go for the best quarterback in this class, Kenny Pickett, the quarterback out of Pittsburgh. They're going to do it. They're going to go for it. They are going to maybe sit Pickett for one more year, develop him, and maybe roll with Sam Darnold for the foreseeable future. And then you unleash Kenny Pickett, you develop him, and Matt Rule is going to be able to get his guy, and the Panthers are going to get better as a team with Kenny as their future starting quarterback. Now we got the New York Giants back on the clock at number 7. As I said before, that there are some options aplenty. They got a right tackle, and now they can probably attack some other needs. You could possibly go Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher. Corner is a possibility. Kyle Hamilton, the safety, he's a pretty good option. I doubt the Giants go wide receiver because they just drafted a receiver last year, Kadarius Toney. And they have a bunch of other guys that are very good weapons for Daniel Jones. Just being able to give him some better pass protection is probably going to be priority number 1. I'd have to think about maybe you go for this time, you go defense. And at number 7, I am going to go for defense. And with the impending trade of James Bradberry, they are going to trade him, and this time they are going to trade him probably before the draft. And I'll say that they are going to trade him to the Kansas City Chiefs because they are very interested in the services of James Bradberry. So they are going to replace James Bradberry with Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback out of LSU. And they're going to go for Derek Stingley because I think he's the next best cornerback in this class. Derek has a really, really good high upside. I think that this is going to be a pretty good pick here for the Giants as they add to the DB room and being able to cover some of the best receivers that they have, some of the receivers like the likes that they have in Dallas. There's some in Philadelphia, and Terry McLaurin for the Washington Commanders. I mean, come on, you got to be able to have a pass defense in order to be able to play some good defense. As for the Atlanta Falcons, they are a team with a whole bunch of needs. A whole lot of people are probably going to mock a quarterback here to the Falcons because they traded away Matt Ryan. But I'm not quite sure if that's what their plan is going to be. I think if I am sitting in the front office with the Atlanta Falcons, I know that this roster is just not good right now. There's really not a whole lot of talent to speak of. You don't really have much at wide receiver because Calvin Ridley, your number 1 wide receiver last year, is suspended for the whole gambling issue, and now you almost have next to nothing there. So the Falcons could go wide receiver. The team is just not very. Is just depleted really. The defense not very good. This is a really, really interesting. The options here for the Falcons are aplenty. I know they could go for an edge rusher because they just cut their top edge rusher. So I think that this is it. This is it. I think this one is Kayvon Thibodeau here, the Oregon outside linebacker, and the Falcons run a 3-4. The Atlanta Falcons are going to get a steal here by getting possibly the best pass rusher in this class. At least for upside, he has probably the most potential out of any of the pass rushers in this draft. And for the 9th overall pick, I have Seattle going for Charles Cross, the Mississippi State offensive tackle. I know that I could have put him to the Carolina Panthers. They have a need at left tackle. But yeah, Seattle is going to replace Dwayne Brown, their old left tackle from last year. This pick to me is a no-brainer. If Charles Cross is here, Seattle should they probably have to pick him. Now here we go with the New York Jets back up on the clock again at number 10, and this pick here is going to be Jermaine Johnson, the second out of Florida State, and now they get their pass rusher. I know that I thought about Thibodeau at number 4 for them, and they could possibly get their cornerback a little bit later at this spot. They could do that, but I think that with the likely availability of Johnson being here, I think that this is probably going to be where they're going to go. They want to be able to get their shutdown corner first and then come back and get their edge rusher. And Jermaine Johnson is a bigger, thicker guy, and I think that's probably why he's going to fit the 4-3 a little bit better than Thibodeau, who has got a smaller frame and is more of an ideal fit for the 3-4, whereas Jermaine Johnson is probably both. You can stick him in a 4-3, you can stick him in a 3-4. He could be as equally effective. Now here we go to a number 11, where the Washington football team, now with a new name, the Washington Commanders, here sitting at number 11. They finally get the free-falling Kyle Hamilton here, who fills a need at safety. He can play strong safety. He might be able to go play back at free safety. And there's also some potential of him possibly playing some at linebacker. There are some things floating around that he probably will have to play inside linebacker. I know he tested kind of poorly at the combine, not running very fast, But I don't think that's really going to be too much of a factor. There are some slower safeties that are just really, really good players. And I think speed really helps, but it's not everything for a player. Kyle dropping here to 11 would honestly be a really big steal here for Washington. And they somehow get a free falling Kyle Hamilton because of some of the uncertainty about where he is going to fit as a player. He could play. He could potentially be a very good starting safety or a good starting linebacker, whatever. The Washington Commanders are going to get a very good defensive football player, regardless. Now we get to pick for another division rival here, the Minnesota Vikings at number 12. I'm going to be fair, you guys. Okay, so if anyone who's a Viking fan here is watching, and here we go. Trent McDuffie, the cornerback out of Washington. What can I say? I think Trent McDuffie is really, really super good. I really like Trent McDuffie a lot. He's versatile. He can probably play in the slot. He can play outside. And I think he's just going to be able to really fit with what Minnesota is going to be doing now. They're going to be bringing in an entirely new defensive system. I'm hearing reports that they're switching to a 3-4. Not that this affects McDuffie in the least bit, but I think just Trent McDuffie is going to be able to play really well into the system. He can play some zone, which is, I think that's where Minnesota is going to go to, kind of like a Vic Fangio style. So I think that this is going to be a very good pick for Skull Nation. And now we're back on the clock to number 13, where the Houston Texans are with their second first-round pick. And this one pick here, I think the Texans could go a lot of different ways. Like I said, they have a whole lot of team needs, and I know that they have a pretty large need at wide receiver. And outside of Brandon Cooks, there's not really too many guys that really jump out at you. You have Nico Collins, a guy that they got last year. He's got some potential to jump up. But I think that this is probably going to be where we're going to enter the receiver zone. And I think that this is probably where Garrett Wilson is going to land right here at number 13 to the Texans. I just think that Garrett is just too good of a prospect to pass up here at this juncture for the Texans. This guy has a really good all-around skill set. I really think he'll fit in really well with the Texans system. You give Davis Mills another option besides Brandon Cooks. So I think that this pick here is going to be Tyler Linderbaum, the center out of Iowa. They have to go with the center here. They have to be able to get a good starting center here after losing Bradley Bozeman. I think that's where they're going to go, even though he's probably not the ideal fit for what the Ravens do. After Linderbaum, there's just not that starting caliber center. You got a pretty big dip down from Linderbaum to like the Luke Fortners or Dylan Parhams. He is a possible option in the second round, but also Parham is also a zone blocking center as well, and I think he's a developmental blocker. He could start at guard. So I think that's why the Ravens here are going to go for Linderbaum, because they know that they need that starting caliber center right from the get-go. You can plug and play, and the Ravens are good to go on the offensive line. And at number 15, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock with their first pick in the first round. They have 2 first-round picks after trading a pick to the New Orleans Saints and getting a pretty big haul for the future. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 15, I think a lot of people want to take a linebacker here for the Eagles, but I know that their philosophy is not really to pick linebackers in the first round. I'm guilty of it. I did pick a linebacker for them in the last mock draft. I think that they're probably going to do what they usually do, and I know that they love to shore up their defensive line. Jordan Davis seems to have Philadelphia Eagle written all over him, too, in my opinion. I know that they have Fletcher Cox. They signed him back to a 1-year deal, but he is aging and he is declining a little bit. So I think that this move is probably more of a future move. Now we come to the New Orleans Saints here. This pick at number 16, this one was super easy for me. This has got to be for a left tackle, and the best left tackle prospect available is Trevor Penning. He fits their zone blocking scheme pretty well. You needed to be able to fill in left tackle out of losing Teron Armstead to the Miami Dolphins. So this is a very, very good pick here for the New Orleans Saints. I'm not quite sure what else they could probably look at. I know that they got here to the 16th pick for a reason, is that they were targeting a player here in this range, and I think that this is probably going to be the range of where Penning was going to be somewhere in the teens. Now at number 17, the LA Chargers, unfortunately, are going to miss out on Trevor Penning. They need a right tackle after releasing Brian Bulaga, and I'm not sure what they go for. Yeah, I think your offensive tackles in the first round are gone, unfortunately. It's a bit early for Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, they're guards anyway. But Kenyon Green has been able to play some right tackle. He could probably be a pretty good fit here, but I think at here, number 17 is a little bit too high. I think this is going to be where there's going to be this first trade. And the team that's going to be moving up, get ready, Packer fans, it's us, the Green Bay Packers. We are moving from 22 up to 17 to pick a player. And don't be surprised if this happens, guys, because Brian Gutekunst, when he has his eyes on somebody, he's not afraid to be aggressive to go and move up for that guy. And the guy that he's moving up for is a receiver that is not talked about very much amongst Packer circles. It's Drake London, the USC wide receiver, and he fits the exact mold of a Packer receiver, big guy, and I really, really like Drake London a lot for the Packers. I think he is going to be a very good welcome addition. He can start right away. There's a lot to like about Drake, and I think that this is going to be it. The Packers are going to be aggressive, and they are going to make a move up for a wide receiver. So we can celebrate, guys. A first-round wide receiver being mocked to the Green Bay Packers. And now up at number 18, we have the Philadelphia Eagles back up on the clock for their second pick here in the first round. The Eagles have certainly plenty of needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They grabbed Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle, to help shore up their defensive line. They could go back on the defensive line again. Possibility of safety, and the best safety available is Daxton Hill. I really like Daxton Hill and his skill set. He's just he's pretty much a versatile guy. He's really a versatile chess piece. You can use him really in a lot of roles. And since a lot of teams play a lot of nickel, I think you could probably use Daxton as sort of like a nickel safety, if you will. And you can play him inside in the slot as a free safety, and you can use him to be able to help cover slot receivers potentially as well. So the Eagles probably can't go wrong with going with a good, capable starting free safety here in this draft, and that could also possibly fill in as a nickel corner. And now we got the New Orleans Saints back on the clock at number 19. They acquired this extra pick from the Philadelphia Eagles. They swapped a couple of picks. Here they go with a playmaker here, and they're going to go with wide receiver out of Ohio State, Chris Olave. And this is a pretty good fit. I really like this pick for the Saints because you have Michael Thomas. He's your number one wide receiver. Chris Olave makes a great number two. And the thing is that these guys are a little bit different from one another, except for the fact that they are great route runners. But Chris is a little bit of a shorter and a smaller guy. Whereas Michael is a little bit of a bigger receiver. I think he's just a really good complement to what Michael Thomas is. And then you have some other speed guys that are really good too, like Traquan Smith. A little bit inconsistent, so you can use Traquan Smith as that number 3 receiver. And getting Chris Olave really ensures getting a good number 2 for the New Orleans Saints. And now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of people are probably thinking that this is going to be the Malik Willis spot. Very possibly could. I know the Steelers have some interest in Malik Willis, and I know that they can take him and sit him for a couple of years, develop him behind Mitchell Trubisky. But people are forgetting that the Steelers have a pretty big need on the offensive line. They didn't shore it up last year in the first round. They took a running back instead, and as a consequence, the offensive line was in shambles. And I think that this time the Steelers have to think about making sure that offensive line is intact, and I think that's where they're going to go. I think they're going to go for an offensive lineman. The offensive tackles, unfortunately, are gone at this point. After Trevor Penning, there's not really anybody that is probably a first-round grade, I would say, by most consensus people that are analyzing the draft, myself included. I think that this is possibly where it's going to be tricky. I can see the Steelers trade down or possibly go for a player on the defense. I know that they could use a little bit of help So I think that they are probably going to go for somebody to be able to help out in the interior. And then the best guard that is available is Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. I think they're going to go here with Kenyon because he's just a really good scheme fit. He's really good in zone blocking, and he has drawn comparisons very much to David DeCastro, their former right guard. And I think that Kenyon, that's where he's probably going to be able to he's going to be able to play. And I also would think that maybe you could possibly think about trying him at offensive tackle, even though I think his best fit probably for the pros is probably going to be at guard. But it would say you could probably try him out, see how things go. But I think Kenyon Green here is a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now with the New England Patriots, this one is really tough for me to decide. The Patriots aren't a team that really have a whole lot of needs, because that New England Patriots roster is usually pretty darn stacked. I think there's really a couple of only really big glaring needs for this team. One of them is cornerback, because they've just lost J.C. Jackson to free agency. This is just tough. I think that the cornerback here that's available that could be picked here at 21 is Andrew Booth, but he's not really exactly the best scheme fit for the New England Patriots. It wouldn't surprise me if they do take Booth. I just think that they might look elsewhere. They could use some help at linebacker. New England just really likes bigger linebackers, and there just happens to be a pretty big linebacker that is available for the Patriots to take. And that guy is David Ojabo, the outside linebacker out of Michigan. I know he's injured. I know he tore his Achilles, but it's not like he's going to be injured for that long. And knowing how New England is, that you pick a guy and you develop them, and they develop. From what I know, that New England really likes Michigan guys. They have picked all kinds of Michigan linebackers. They picked Josh Uche from 2 years ago. They picked Chase Winovich, who they just traded. So they're going to be looking for a replacement there. And David Ojabo is really probably going to be a really good fit for the New England Patriots. They kind of employ like a hybrid 4-3-3-4 type of scheme. And if they use a 3-4, then David Ojabo would fit right in as a good pass rushing 3-4 outside linebacker. That's kind of what they have Matthew Judon doing as an outside linebacker there. So I think that pairing Ojabo with Judon would make a good duo here for the Patriots. And now with the LA Chargers now back on the clock at 22 after trading down with the Green Bay Packers, here's where they could possibly go for an offensive lineman here. I know that Kenyon Green went off the board 2 picks earlier with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think that this is a pretty good spot here for the Boston College guard Zion Johnson. I really like Zion. I think he's a really good scheme fit for the Chargers. He can do a lot of really great stuff in zone blocking, and I know that he fills a need at guard. I think he could possibly slide to right tackle, and maybe you give him a try and see what happens. After all, you have Trey Pipkins and Storm Norton. Those guys have been able to play offensive tackle before. They filled in at that spot. But I don't think those guys are really exactly what you want if you're the Los Angeles Chargers. You want to make sure that your franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert, is protected. So Zion makes sense for to be able to fill in a need at guard or offensive tackle. Now with the Arizona Cardinals on the clock, there are some needs here for the Cardinals that could be filled in. One of the biggest ones is outside linebacker. They could use some help at wide receiver. But the biggest loss arguably has been at outside linebacker. They lost Chandler Jones. Next best pass rusher here available is George Karlaftis. So I think that they're going to go here. I know that George is probably a better fit for the 4-3, but he can play outside linebacker. He's not the best in coverage, but that's not really what the Cardinals are probably going to exactly use him for. A lot of the time he's going to be standing up and he's going to go get the quarterback, and that's something that he does really well. He's a really, really good athlete. As for the Cowboys here at number 24, there are not too many needs for this team. This Dallas Cowboy team is actually looking really strong, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, and on offense, there's really not too many really big needs to speak of. I guess right tackle is something that can be addressed, but the offensive tackles here are off the board. I think that if you want to be able to build on that defensive line, strengthen it up, I think you could look at defensive tackle, and The Georgia defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt is still on the board, so they go for him here, and they really add another extra piece to add into the rotation and go get the quarterback and stuff the run. So Dallas here going with Georgia's Devontae Wyatt would be a really good pick here. I think that's where I can see the Cowboys go. The Buffalo Bills are a team with really almost no needs. It's incredible how well built this roster is, and I think that there are some holes that can be addressed. Otherwise, you could go with a potential luxury pick here for if you're the Bills. A receiver is a possibility, even though you're stacked there at receiver, even though you just lost Cole Beasley, you released him. But there is one pretty big need at cornerback. So this pick here is Andrew Booth. This is where Andrew Booth goes, and this is a very, very good scheme fit. Andrew Booth can fit really well with what the Bills do. They play all kinds of zone, and they also are not afraid to play some man coverage and get in your face. Andrew Booth is probably tailor-made for the zone coverage, but he can play in man as well. And now with the Tennessee Titans at number 26, they need some help on the interior offensive line. Those guys are gone, Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson. Outside of those guys, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be above the first round line. So Tennessee at this spot, I'm not quite sure where they could go. I suppose a receiver could be a possibility. You add to the receiver room to give Ryan Tannehill a weapon. I just don't really think that's where they're going to go. I know they want to shore up the offensive line and get some more interior presence there to help block. So I can see them move out of this spot, and there is a team that is going to be looking for the services of a quarterback, and Malik Willis just happens to still be dropping here, and I think this is probably at the spot of where there is going to be a team that is going to be looking for, at the bottom of the first round, a quarterback needy team is going to come and move up, and that team is the Seattle Seahawks. I'm gonna have the Seattle Seahawks move up here at this spot, moving up from 40 to 26, and in turn giving up some picks here, and they are going to give up a third round pick, number 72 overall, to be able to move up into this spot. And Seattle is going to get their quarterback of the future to develop behind Drew Lock, and that's Malik Willis out of Liberty. I know that this is and the 27th overall pick belongs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team is another team that doesn't really have a whole lot of glaring needs. Like the Buffalo Bills, they could just go for a potential luxury pick and just go for a skill position player. Running back is a possibility. Maybe you can think about running backs here at this spot. Tampa Bay could stand to get some help there at that spot. So I think there's going to be some team that is going to be looking to move up for some more help for their teams, and a team that happens to have a lot of picks that could make a move up. You got the likes of the New York Giants, the New York Jets. So the Houston Texans are also, they have all kinds of picks. They could potentially move up for another impact player for their team. And the team that's going to call up Tampa Bay is the New York Jets. So they are on the clock, and they're going to pick a player. The New York Jets have been wanting to acquire some more help at wide receiver. They've offered a first-round pick to actually trade for DK Metcalf, but they neglected to take the trade, and the New York Jets here are going to move up for impact rookie wide receiver, and this time they're going to be able to pick up a good player here, and this is going to be for wide receiver Jameson Williams out of Alabama. I think this is a pretty good complement to what the Jets have right now. You'll already have some bigger-bodied wide receivers. You have Corey Davis, so I think that the Jets could potentially come up here and grab another pass catcher and be able to get another weapon here for Zach Wilson and help his progression and potentially get better. And now at number 28, the Packers are back on the clock. And with this second pick in the first round, I know it doesn't fill a huge immediate need right now, but this player is just going to fit so well with what the Packers do. Because like I said, again, I'm trying to put myself into the mind of each GM in each front office and think of what they think of how they want to build their teams with each pick. And for the Packers, I'm trying to put myself into the mind of Brian Gutekunst and think about who they're going to pick. This pick here just seems to scream such like a Packer pick. And this pick here at 28, the Packers are going to take Jalen Petrie, the strong safety out of Baylor. You can use him as like a nickel safety. So you kind of have that third safety here that kind of helps fills in that little need after letting go of Henry Black. And also on top of that, Adrian Amos, he's set to be a free agent after this year, and as is Darnell Savage. So we got two safeties that are going to be free agents next year. It's unlikely that one or the other is going to be back. So this would be a bad idea to grab Jalen Petrie at this spot to be able to fill in that spot. In the meantime, while Jalen is developing, you can probably play him in that star role and be able to kind of use him in several different ways. You can use him as like a slot defender. And he has been able to. He's actually played a little bit as a slot corner, and that's why that versatility will come in handy. And I know that Joe Barry is so adamant about wanting to use like a star role. Well, Jalen Petrie to me is really kind of like that. He's been used in that star role at Baylor. Now the Kansas City Chiefs at 29, they have two back-to-back picks, 29 and 30. So with the first pick in the first round for the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to go with a replacement to Tyreek Hill, and that's Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. This pick, like I said, this is a pretty good value pick here. Treylon dropping to 29 would be absolutely fantastic for the Chiefs, as they could use that number one guy there. They don't really have a number one wide receiver right now. Chiefs, as far as their makeup of the receiving core right now, that's what Treylon can bring to the table here for the Chiefs. That's what Tyreek Hill did have. He was dynamic after the catch, and that's what Treylon offers as well. You can move him outside, you can move him inside, and you can use him in a variety of different ways for this offense. And I know that Patrick Mahomes will get the most out of Treylon, who is kind of probably going to come out a little bit raw. His route tree was somewhat limited at Arkansas, so it may take a little bit of time, but if you use him correctly, he could be a boom. And with their second pick in the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs use the number 30 overall pick on another free-falling player, and that's outside linebacker Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. He fits pretty well with a 4-3 like will linebacker. I know the Chiefs probably could use more help at middle linebacker, but they did draft Nick Bolton last year. He can probably play inside and outside. Nakobe Dean just being able to bolster the linebacker group here for Kansas City would be a welcomed addition, and just the fact that he's just a really good player that's just dropping to them would be tough to pass up on for Kansas. And then here at 31, the Cincinnati Bengals, who shocked the world, made it to a Super Bowl. This pick here is probably going to be able to help to bolster kind of somewhat of a weak spot for the Cincinnati Bengals, which on their defense was linebacker, and just another really good player just dropping into the late first round. Devin Lloyd would just be very tough to pass up on for the Bengals, and I know he certainly could have gone earlier, but like I said, it's kind of been more so the needs of the teams, and the Bengals just happened to get a really, really good player that had a position of need just drop right to them. So this pick would make a whole ton of sense for Cincinnati, as probably their best linebacker is their middle linebacker, Logan Wilson, and we know how much of an impact he has made at the middle linebacker position. So just being able to get somebody to play at the outside linebacker spot at the will linebacker position would be very helpful for the Cincinnati Bengals, and being able to get their defense shored up and a little bit better, and to be able to make a better push for a Super Bowl championship. And now we get to the last pick in the first round, 32 overall, which originally belonged to the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. It was traded to the Lions for Matthew Stafford. So with the last pick in the first round, the Detroit Lions are going to go for their dynamic playmaking wide receiver here in Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. And here's why this pick makes sense, because yeah, the Lions are a little bit bereft of talent at receiver. They have a bunch of no names, and then you got some pretty good players, and you got some pretty good wide receivers. They just signed DJ Chark from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's going to be a good number one for Jared Goff. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a really good player too. He was their number one receiver last year. I really like where the Lions could go with this. You kind of add another big-bodied wide receiver in Christian Watson, and maybe take St. Brown. You can put him in the slot, and he can do all kinds of different dynamic things there, where Watson can use his frame and his speed to go deep and threaten and be a deep threat. And that's the kind of thing for Detroit that would make a whole lot of sense to me, is kind of getting another complementary player and adding a triple threat to the Lions at wide receiver here. So that's going to do it for the first round. And now I'm going to go for a brief explanation of the second round. And now we get to day 2, starting with the second round and then going into the third round. I'm not going to go over this list verbatim. You guys can go ahead and check out this list to be able to see which teams have made their picks. And as of note, there have been 4 trades in the second round, and in the third round, there have been 3. So that's 7 trades on day 2. And of course, let me know what you guys think about this mock draft in the comments. I'll put out one more mock draft before the NFL draft is set to take place in 2 more weeks. And I will catch you guys later.